أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. This week we'll be beginning the Tafseer, the commentary on Surah Nasr. Now this surah refers to the conquest of Makkah at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this surah had a profound effect on the personal life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Comes in narration that Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, he would allow Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, who was very young, to sit with the senior Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And the senior Sahaba, they would not, in their heart they felt they were very a bit somewhat reluctant to allow Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. So on one occasion to sit with them. So on one occasion, Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, when Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas was sitting, this surah was recited, and he asked the opinion of the senior Sahaba radiallahu anhum as to what their opinions were as regard to this surah. So the reply of this surah, he talks about the conquest of Makkah and that to make istighfar, to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, he addresses Abdullah ibn Abbas and he asks him, what is your opinion regarding this surah? And he said, in this surah, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is informing about the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come to an end, and soon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will depart from this world. Because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was assigned a task to invite towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to propagate the deen of Allah, and now this mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had been accomplished, and as a result the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to depart from this world has come near. This is why it was also mentioned in the narration when the surah was revealed, when the surah was recited, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu began to cry profusely, and later on it became known as to why the reason for this, because he was he was informing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that his time has come to a close. So when we take a look, when was this surah revealed? What is the historical context of this surah? Now, the majority of the scholars they of the opinion that this surah was revealed in Medina, is a Madni surah, and it was revealed at the time of Fath Makkah, at the time of the conquest of Makkah, during the end of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in Tafseer Ibn Kathir, one narration is mentioned that a person who recites this surah, he will get the reward of reciting 1/4 of the Quran. So this was just some basic introductory notes about this surah. Now we take a look at this surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he begins with Idha. Now Idha in Arabic, in English is translated as to when. But now there are two words in Arabic that are used for when. One is Idha and one is Id. The difference between the two is that Idha generally in Arabic refers to the future tense, and Id is used for past tense. Examples of this in the Quran, إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انفَطَرَتْ, is all talking about past tense, future tense. And Id is talking about generally refers to something in the past. But here, so in English when you say when, it can be, depending on how it's used, you can use it, there's just one word, you can just say when. But the difference between Idha and Id. So here, some other scholars, other opinion, this surah was revealed at the time of Fath Makkah, conquest of Makkah, and this is being used in the past tense. So إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ, when the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came and the conquest. And those are some of the people of the opinion that it was revealed before the conquest of Makkah, after Khaybar. So hence they will translate it as when the help of Allah will come and the conquest. That meaning that this was glad tidings to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the conquest and help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will shortly arrive. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, after Idha, mentions the word Ja'a. Ja'a, in translated, means to come. to arrive. Now there is another word for this in Arabic as well. Ata is also meant to come. What's the difference between ja and ata when is used? So ja'a, it comes, it's mentioned in Tafseer, that ja is used for something. Ja is a word which is more, ata is more fluid. It's easier to pronounce than ja. This why ja is only used in the past tense. It doesn't, even though in the present and future tense, it doesn't hardly come. The G is hardly used. Most of the time, we just use the word ja. And ja is used for something heavy, some great events. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, فَإِذَا جَاءَتِ الصَّاخَّةُ فَإِذَا جَاءَتِ الطَّامَّةُ الْكُبْرَى referring to Qiyamah. The Sakha and Tama is something great. Similarly, the help of Allah, Nasrullah, is something great. It's not something small. So it's appropriate to use the word Ja'a instead of the word Athara. So this is the word Ja'a. Then after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Nasrum. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ Nasr, the help. So Allah could have just mentioned the word help, Nasr, by itself. Now, what does the word Nasr mean? Nasr means help, but in Arabic, again, you have many words for help. You have Nasr, you have Ayyada, you have Azzara, you have Ista'ana, A'ana, A'ud, etc., and so on. So, even so far, the word Nasta'in is a general type of help and has its own implications. So, what does the word Nasr mean? Well, one of the scholars, Abdurrahman Kilani, he mentioned in Mutaradif al-Quran, by Arabic synonyms used in the Quran, that Nasr is a specific type of help. When you ask for help against an oppressor or against affliction, when you're asking for help against an oppressor, and when it's used for when you're asking for help against someone. So if one country was to ask for help from another country again for against another country, then this would you say you use the word Nasr. So so the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against the enemy, against the non-believers. So, and when the word Nasr is used, it's attributed to Allah, Nasrullah. The word Nasr could have just been used by itself. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the word Allah, Nasrullah, the help of Allah. This magnifies the help of Nasr. Yeah? So, so a few words are used like this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings His name in the Quran. Example, Naqatullah, referring to the she camel. And then another place, Narullah, the fire of Allah. One is you could have just said the fire or just the she camel. But when you bring the name of Allah, Naqatullah, this refers this she camel, there will be no she camel like this. Narullah, a fire like there will be no fire like this. Same Nasrullah, the help of Allah, there will be no help like the help of Allah. So such help. Nasrullah, so this when the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes. And then after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions wal fath, and then conquest. And again, a few more things about the word Nasr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the word that is used is Nasr. It's a noun and it's not a verb. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, for the time of Badr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped you at the time of Badr, and you were helpless. There Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used a verb. And because the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did support them, but after this the opposition still remained. Many battles were still fought. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses a noun. A noun is more powerful. So this after this help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala arrived, there was no opposition from the Quraysh. It was finished. The case was closed. Then after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Nasrullah, and then after this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions wal fath, and the conquest. Fath in Arabic literally means fataha yaftahu, means to open. Like if we say fatah al-bab, he opened the door. So for conquest, for another word for like conquest or victory that is used also in the Quran is dhafr. Va, fa, and ra. So what's the difference between dhafr and fath? Fath is such a clear, it's a clear victory. When the victor is unanimously agreed upon, the victor knows he won, and the loser knows he lost. It's not a close battle. That is, he hasn't just won by a small margin. It's a landslide victory to the person who won. So the conquest, when this help of Allah, the conquest came, was a clear victory for the Muslims, and no opposition remained. And shortly afterwards, the entire Arabian Peninsula, more or less, it came into the fold of Islam. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions two types of victory. One is in Surah Inna Fatahna Laka Fathan Mubina, referring to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah is a very long episode that happened in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, very brief. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam left with the Sahaba, large number of Sahaba to perform Umrah, they were stopped by the Quraysh, the Quraysh, and they stopped them from entering inside Makkah and performing Umrah. So the Muslims, they had worn the ihram, but the Quraysh, they stopped them, and they finally agreed to sign a peace treaty with them. But all the conditions in this peace treaty were apparently against the Muslims. For example, some of them were, if any person was to embrace Islam from Makkah and come to Medina, leave Makkah and come to Medina, he would have to be returned to Makkah. And again, the Muslims, they would not be allowed to perform Umrah this year. They would have to go back, and so on. So apparently, it looked like this peace treaty was against the Muslims. So at this time, the Sahaba, they were very angry. Even Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, he came and he approached Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was so angry that he said, "Are we not on the right? Are we not on the haqq? Are we not on the truth? Why do we have to listen to these people?" But again, later on he regretted saying this for the rest of his life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he returned with the Sahaba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse, Inna Fatahna Laka Fathan Mubina. We have given to you a Fathan Mubina, an open victory. And how was this a victory? Because once the peace treaty was signed, there was no war, there was no bloodshed. Now Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam could focus his efforts on the rest of the Arabian Peninsula, on the rest of the Arabian tribes. And until now, the Quraysh, they had not even accepted the Muslims as a group. They had not even accepted to sit down and sign a treaty with them. So when this news broke out that the Quraysh have accepted to sign a peace treaty with the Muslims, they spread like wildfire all across the Arabian Peninsula, and people began to finally realize that the influence of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has grown to such an extent. So many people came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent many jamaats to different tribes, and slowly the influence of Rasulullah began to increase, and the influence of the Quraysh slowly decreased to such an extent. Finally, after 2-3 years later, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came back, he came to perform Hajj with such a large number of Muslims at the time of Fath Makkah, the conquest of Makkah. The Quraysh, they did not even have to fight. There was no bloodshed. The Quraysh, they could not even do anything. And this was such a victory, and there was without any bloodshed, without anything. So the conquest, the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah, that was a victory for the Muslims, which led to the victory of Fath Makkah. So that's why in Fath Mubina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he brings it without alif lam, Fath Mubina, and here in Surah Nasr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wal Fath. So when you say Fathan, it's like a lesser conquest, and Al Fath is more powerful. So, because after the conquest of Makkah, there was no opposition. There was no opposition left from the Quraysh. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and another thing, when we talk about Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even the non-Muslims, they talk about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they tend to describe the achievements of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that he done such and such, that he accomplished this and he accomplished that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us in this verse that everything that happened, all the conquest, the victory from the Muslims, even though Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has been inviting towards the deen of Allah for so many years, he has made effort for entire, from the time he has received Nubuwwah till now, he has continuously been making effort. He has been told when the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, the help is being attributed to Allah and nothing to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam or to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Everything, the victory and the conquest is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why the sequence of the words as well. The Nasr comes first, the help of Allah, then the conquest. Because through the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Muslims will be able to attain victory, and they will be able to conquer Makkah. only through the help of Allah. So anything that we do, all our efforts ultimately is through the blessing of Allah. So whatever we do, even Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is being taught here that even though despite all the efforts of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we cannot compare our efforts to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he is being told that the help is from Allah. Only through the help of Allah we are able to accomplish that Islam was able to flourish. So similarly, again, when we do anything, we have to always remember this is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes in the narrations, when he entered Makkah, a few of the verses that he said, he was praising Allah, Alhamdulillah wahda, وحزم الأحزاب وحده وهزم الأحزاب وحده ونصر عبده. It is Allah alone who defeated the enemy, and it is Allah who helped his servant. So the help is through the help of Allah, the Muslims were able to conquer Makkah, and Islam was able to flourish. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand the Quran and take lessons from the Quran, and inshallah we'll continue from here next week.